Wait, did she just call out a sitting Republican for ignoring a subpoena during a Clinton hearing? Because that's exactly what happened, and the room went dead silent.
I have sat here listening and I am quite perplexed. It does take me back to my legal days. And so when I think about a subpoena, one of the things that we normally look at when we are trying to determine whether or not contempt is going to be ushered into the conversation is whether or not there's been substantial compliance and what it means to actually look like you have substantially complied. It means that you're taking reasonable steps to follow a court order, that you're acting in good faith, and typically that serves as a defense. So if we are still crafting the parameters of said subpoena, for instance, my colleague, Mr. Walkinshaw, just asked whether or not this would be limited to the Epstein subject matter. For me, if they responded at all, then there is some sort of compliance, which they did. They didn't just throw the bird. They didn't just say, forget it. But more importantly, I just want to point out that we are living in an age of hypocrisy, because my other colleague just pointed out that Mr. Perry sits here and somehow sits in judgment of others. Frankly, that is what people are kind of getting annoyed by, is the hypocrisy, because Mr. Perry still has an outstanding subpoena that was never complied with. In addition to that, he talked about we need to care for the victims. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, and I will yield my time. But I don't believe that Mr. Perry ever signed off on the discharge petition in the first place. So I don't know if he is just doing what he believes is politically expedient. But I will tell you this. I refuse to be a puppet, because Democrats tend to be of goodwill. We always want to do the right thing. We are always trying to follow the rules and follow the law. Unfortunately, we are living with an administration that does not care. We just want some type of parity. So, for instance, we all want to hear from President Clinton. If for some reason you said, we will give you, say, Pam Bondi, and then we've got President Clinton with it, or say maybe President Trump and President Clinton, two presidents, because we know that both presidents actually had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But what looks political and looks like one can get away with everything, especially since that's what the Supreme Court has stated, that's why it looks like it's just gamesmanship. You only care about following the rules so long as you can invoke those rules on what is typically perceived as your political enemies. This is why we are falling apart in this country. We are supposed to be about checks and balances. It should not matter whether or not you're associated with the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, independent, or whomever, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're middle class, whether you're a black immigrant or whatever. But it seems like we only have a political agenda in this committee, and that's why everything goes off the rails. You only love law enforcement when they're going after black, brown, immigrants, that kind of folk, right? But on January 6th, you didn't care about law enforcement because they still don't have their plaques up. We continue to do the right thing and say, yes, apply the rules equally across the board. And then y'all play in our faces and you only apply it to one side. I am asking for one commitment, and then I will yield to the ranking member. Mr. Chair, will you commit to me, as the chair of probably the most important committee in this Congress, especially in this moment where people are concerned about the level of corruption that exists within this committee, will you promise me that you are good for doing whatever is right and following the evidence, no matter who is on the other side of that evidence?
Yes, and that is why I subpoenaed the estate. And we had no idea what was, nobody knew. Nobody knew
I
what was in
understand,
the estate documents. And I, without hesitation, subpoenaed the estate. We've subpoenaed the Department of Justice.
And that's where we got the birthday letter. We subpoenaed
because
the estate. Hold on, Mr.
Subpoena.
Chair. Okay, we got the birthday letter, but we can't just get the evidence and then not follow up on the evidence that we actually get. I will relinquish the rest of my time to the chair.
Thank you. I just want to really clarify one. Thank you very much, Representative Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice, and that made it hit even harder. In one of the most direct moments of the hearing, Crockett dismantled the credibility of the contempt push by pointing out the glaring hypocrisy sitting right in the room. Scott Perry still has an outstanding subpoena of his own. While Republicans were rushing to hold the Clintons in contempt, Crockett reminded the committee what contempt law actually requires: good faith, substantial compliance, and equal application. And then she pulled the rug out from under the entire proceeding. She laid it out plainly. You cannot posture as defenders of the rule of law while ignoring subpoenas that applied to your own members. That's not oversight. That's selective enforcement dressed up as accountability. Her argument went deeper than personalities. Crockett tied this moment to a broader breakdown in trust. Law enforcement is only defended when it targets political opponents. Subpoenas only matter when they're useful. Rules are enforced selectively, not universally. And when she connected that hypocrisy to January 6th, unequal justice, and political gamesmanship, it was clear this wasn't about Clinton, it was about credibility. The most powerful moment came at the end, when Crockett looked directly at the chair and demanded a commitment to follow the evidence, no matter who it implicates. No dodging, no slogans, just a simple question that cuts to the core of congressional oversight. Will the rules apply to everyone, or only to political enemies? That's why this moment landed so hard, not because it was loud, but because it was undeniable.